Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Sheeran,
I'm Michelle Dunbar.
and we co-wrote The Freedom Model for Addictions, Escape the Treatment and Recovery Trap. And we've been coaching people how to solve their addiction now for 34 years. We created the coaching model for the addiction space 34 years ago.
Yeah, we didn't call it that, but
yeah,
it is what we've always done.
Yeah. So we want to talk a little bit about what we're doing. About a year ago, we started doing workshops for people, and 2-day workshops where we deconstruct their binge construct. Essentially, we show people why they do what they do.
Yeah.
And that's Michelle and I working with them. And
like one person at a time, because it has to be personalized for that person.
That's right. So they spend 2 days with us, and then they also get support sessions after they go back home. And then also we give support sessions all the way out for 1 full year if they need it. Not everybody needs that, but that's what we do. So we started this like a year ago, and all of a sudden I said to Michelle, geez, we're booking up now pretty quick. And so we just got on the computer and we set up all the dates, which we're going to make live here soon, for this year. And I said, we better do a commercial and let people know that we're available because
we want to work with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was coached in the early years by her father, and then I coached Michelle.
Yep.
And so we've been doing this a long time, and we want to help you. You know, some people can learn with the book, some people can learn with our online program and all the various things that we do. But ultimately, there's a whole group of people that are in pretty deep, and they're mystified as to why they're doing what they're doing, and they're struggling, and it's needless because we can show you how to get past this for good. No meetings, no endless mat regimens, no recovery, no struggle.
Yeah, we will be your personal coaches.
Yeah.
And we want to work with you. So you look on the website. If you see a date that works for you, book it, because they're going to go quickly. But if you don't see a date that works for you, then call us and we will figure out a date that works for both of us mutually, and we can make a plan. And as soon as you book it, you will become an online program member as well. You get that membership for an entire year, and you can start that right away as soon as you book it. So if you want to call us, and you're watching, it's in the top corner, 888-424-2626. That comes directly to Mark and I, and we will talk about when you can fly in and meet with us.
Yeah. We look forward to it.
We do.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar. Enjoy listening and watching as addiction experts Mark Sheeran and I cover controversial as well as helpful topics on addiction, how to move past it, and other related subjects. As two of the co-founders of the Freedom Model, Mark and I will give you a completely new perspective on the topics that matter to you. We will take to task the Recovery Society's lies and misinformation and replace them with facts, research, and the methods to move on from addiction struggles without 12-step meetings, rehabs, and the shackles of endless recovery. Let's escape the treatment and recovery trap together and learn to be free. Welcome to the truth. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Addiction Solution. I'm Michelle Dunbar.
And I'm Mark Sheeran, and we wrote The Freedom Model for Addictions, Escape the Treatment and Recovery Trap.
We have an amazing guest with us today. This is Leslie Inlow, and she is a therapist, and she has a business called Cracked Open Therapy. And she also has a pretty great story about her escape from the addiction and recovery trap as well. So, and because Leslie and I know each other pretty well, I'm going to let Mark do some interview questions.
Yeah, because I'm coming in cold.
He is.
And we kind of did that on purpose so that I could investigate, figure out her story. And yeah, I'm excited. So
I do. I love that we're doing it this way. Yeah, because you haven't heard any of it, Mark.
Nope.
So
yeah, none of it.
So it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. And I just have to say, I'm a total fangirl right now. I've listened to every one of your podcasts, and it's just really kind of cool that I'm here now.
Yeah. Well, I want, because our first conversation just popped into my head, which was now probably 3 years ago, more than that, maybe.
Gosh, has it been that long? I
I,
think,
I, I
yeah,
think,
it might, because November is when I stopped going to meetings, but I didn't like shit didn't really hit the fan for like 6 months.
right,
So
right,
in
right.
November of this year, it'll be 3 years since I like
So that's,
found
it was probably that long ago. Holy crap. Holy.
I know,
So,
time flies.
so I just wanted you to tell the story of how you found us first.
Yeah, that's a good starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Good starting point. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I Googled, is AA a cult?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
And I had been in 2 other cults before
Yeah.
that. So I was like really well versed in it and like had studied it, but I just was like, I have to see if there's anyone out there who's saying that AA is a cult as well. And then I found this podcast actually. And I think there was one titled that or something.
Yeah.
I think we've done a few because we've been doing the podcast since 2018.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I will never forget sitting on my couch in my living room, and somehow my whole family, everybody was gone. Like I was just there by myself listening to that podcast. And this is why my business is called Cracked Open Therapy, is because it felt like my brain just kind of
That's
cracked
right.
open and was like, holy shit,
Yeah.
I'm in a
Yeah.
cult. I've been in one for 9 years. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
Yeah.
It kind of started before that, but that's how I found you.
So can I start
Yeah,
asking
go
some
ahead.
questions? So you said that you were involved. I was involved in a couple of cults as well. I started in AA as a young boy, right? You know my story, but some of the viewers may not.
Sure.
And so I am a systematic thinker. So I look for things that I can plug into. And when I was a really lost boy and into adolescence, I would plug myself into whatever was the next thing because I didn't have a family. So I'm a systematic thinker. So I'd look for basically a group of people and I'd integrate, and then it would work or it wouldn't work. Then I would hook up with a girl and make sure and cling to that for a little while. And then that would fall apart. And then I would, and so I did that. I went to colleges, 7 of them, right? Never. And I was always looking to plug in, and I could never really find what I was looking for because I was missing. The whole time I was missing, and I didn't understand that I held the key to my own kingdom. I didn't know that. I was never taught that as a youngster. So then I got involved in a born again Christian cult that was really twisted. I can't even begin to tell you how.
I mean, I've heard a lot. I've heard pretty much everything, I think, but
Yeah.
So
born again.
I have some of that experience. So why don't you tell us a little bit of your history in
With
that vein? Yeah.
Yeah. And this is just, I don't know. The word cult, I think is, I mean, I think you guys have talked about that, like calling something a cult. I think I just need to say that I'm like scared to say like,
I know.
there's a part of me that's like, oh my God, I'm not going to name anything.
No, don't.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to.
But I just think I needed to say that out loud. Like, I'm calling it a cult, The first one was a personal development cult is what I would call it, or a large group awareness training. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Local in the place that I lived. And actually one of my really good friends recruited me. And I didn't know it was a cult until like after I sort of started coming out of that. But actually that's also how I found AA.
Mm-hmm.
Because they told me I couldn't drink alcohol or like smoke weed while I was doing their program.
Yeah.
A lot of them were actually also 12-step group members.
Right.
So it like integrated with each other.
Yes.
And then I actually left that one to start in AA. And then while I was in AA, I was a part of an MLM, multi-level marketing.
Yep.
Which I consider to be cults because of the same sort of like what happened to my brain feeling.
Yes.
That when I came out of it. But then what's funny is I was in a cult within one. Like I was in that cult while I was in the AA cult, and then didn't know I was in the AA cult for many years after that.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're a systematic thinker too. So there are people that will say to me, Mark, how you're a smart guy, how did you fall for all this? And I
Yeah.
said, because the way I see the world, it's just the way I see the world. And I've since obviously changed the way I see the world. I see the world much more from a perspective of what makes me happy. And I sort of look at things with a much more critical eye. And I also don't fall prey to what somebody else tells me I should be doing. I used to look for that, like, please guide me, guide me.
Mm.
So
Yes.
is that what would you say were the things that led you to become susceptible to that sort of thinking?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't have a family either. I think it goes back to belonging for
Yeah.
me, trying to find where I belonged, and also for someone to tell me what was normal or like how to live my life. I don't know. I think there was could really relate to what you were talking about just plugging in somewhere and just kind of going all in,
Yeah.
completely committing to it,
Right.
and then only to discover later that it was not me or I was being harmed in that process. But I really think it comes down to identity and belonging. Like, I didn't have those things. Those weren't really fostered for me because I come from a broken home.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, I could go on, but
Yeah.
I won't tell you my whole life story right now.
Yeah. I won't dig too deep.
Yeah.
I promise.
Well, do we want to talk about just the AA part of it is, when you were in it, and I know you and I talked about this, when you first started thinking, "Ooh, I think I got to leave." I mean, for you, it was quite an involved process trying to leave. You were on many levels. It was your entire life, correct?
Oh, yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Actually, my mom, Mark, our stories are very kind of similar. I'm an only child, though. Uh, well, that's insane to me. But, my mom was in AA. She got sober when I was 13, and she was a single parent. And I thought that if once you develop a drinking problem, and they were doing the thing to me that I've done to people, which is like, oh, well, I'll see you in a few years,
Yep.
like, or something like that. So it was already in my psyche that I would end up there,
Yeah.
in AA. And so, I think it feels like I was in it before I was in it.
Yes.
Us too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a foregone conclusion.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. So, I'm 22 and in college and partying a lot and having blackouts and thinking, oh, I have a problem. I'm just like my mom, just like that, what
Yep.
they said would happen.
That's right.
So I go to AA. I actually went to treatment too. And so I was deep in what do you guys call it? Society? The
The Recovery
Recovery
Society.
Society.
The Recovery Society. Yeah. So, and I think that's actually part of why I became a therapist too. I'm sure you've seen that happen, and I've seen it happen where people are like, I want to be an addictions counselor because I just want to do this all the time and I want to help people.
Oh yeah.
So like pretty quickly, I feel like it just became my entire world, because I was going to meetings and doing all that stuff. But then a year into it, I went back to school and started studying to become a therapist. I got a master's in social work.
Yep.
It's like an addictions concentration. And in hindsight, it was just like getting those letters behind my name so that I could sit with people and basically sponsor them, or, I didn't realize at the time that's why I was doing it. But I think in hindsight I was. And so, I mean, I guess long story short, I also met my husband, my now ex-husband, in that first year. And so I'm married to someone in it. I'm studying it. I'm just
You're
totally
in.
immersed. Right.
Yeah.
And I did that for 7-ish, 8-ish years. And then I don't remember when it started to kind of unravel in my head, but I do remember when I told my husband at the time that I was having those thoughts, like those doubts about our belief system. Like, I'm really
Yep.
scared because I actually don't think I believe this anymore. And he said the thing all people in AA are taught to say, which is like, well, that's fine. That's fine. You know, just AA is not for everyone. Like, really kind of pretty supportive at first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I took a drink that shit really hit the fan.
Yep.
Because I didn't drink. I stopped going to meetings, and for 6 months, I explored all of this with you guys. And
Yep.
their friend in AA was kind of having the same process, so I was talking to her a lot. And then eventually, I just decided I felt like it was an exercise of my freedom to take a drink of alcohol. Like, it was just like, they've been telling me I can't do this, and my life is going to fall apart if I do this. I want to test it out. Like, I want to see. And so I did, but I did it in hiding, like while my husband was out of town, knowing that if I had told him ahead of time that that's what I was going to do, he would have talked me out of it, or, you know, whatever. Like, there was no good way for me to do that experiment within the context of my marriage at the time.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. So he comes back from his trip, and I tell him, because I wanted to be in an honest marriage, you know?
Sure.
And by the way, I had 1.5 glasses of wine and didn't feel like I wanted any more, and the world didn't end. And I was like, holy shit, you know, you guys are right.
Yeah, nothing happened.
Yeah,
The freedom model's right. Yeah, I mean, nothing happened. I mean, but something did happen after that, but it's not because of alcohol.
Right.
What I know now. So that is when, I mean, his behavior just changed completely. And I believe that a lot of that has to do with just like the mindset and the cult programming and like his like strong reaction. But it was bad enough that, you know, I left overnight and never went back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I am still disentangling myself. Still having relationships kind of end, having to cut ties with people, just because I'm a totally different person now.
Yeah. So let me go back a little bit. So the previous systems that you got involved in, you left those, you grew past them, I assume, and then AA was sort of somewhere in there began. So you had these other systems that you were in. When you left those, was it hard to leave those, or were you able to see it and go, that's just not for me, and do that very quickly? Was it quickly, or were they difficult to leave as well?
That's a good question. I think they were easier. Both of the other two systems were easier to leave.
Yeah.
Emotionally and socially is what made it hard. Because like for the large group awareness training community I was a part of, I just stopped engaging in it, and nobody reached out to me, but I just felt guilty. I think like that was the consequence of that. I felt bad, but I guess that was pretty easy. But the multi-level marketing one was hard because I had really thought I was gonna like become a millionaire, you know, doing this. So the deception, I think, and realizing that, and then like thinking that I had made friends with people who weren't actually my friends.
Yeah, that's hard.
That was really hard too. But nothing compared to this. I mean, there were, you know, the law was involved in this one, and all kinds of other supports that I needed in order to really get out.
So your mom, is she still a member, or did she get out?
She is, oh man, she's a member in her mind still.
Got it. She's got the societal sort of indoctrination that most people have, that AA is a good thing, take what you want, leave the rest, but it's going to be a part of my life, with a little bit of fear attached, and probably doesn't drink and
doesn't drink. She's said to me, like, I know I can't. Like, you may be able to, but I know I can't.
Right. So
right, because maybe you weren't a real real
Yes.
alcoholic.
Yes.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, at least she gives you that.
Yeah.
That's my mother too, because my mother was the Al-Anon woman.
Oh,
She's like, I never thought you were a real alcoholic. This from a woman who kicked me out like twice because of my drinking. So,
mhm,
but you rewrite your history. That's easy to do in AA.
mhm.
So when you got involved in AA, so how long was it? How long was your time in AA?
About 9, yeah, 2012 to I was almost 10 years sober. So 9 and a half.
Yeah, because you and I think I talked to you in 21. I think it was 21
Okay.
we talked.
Okay. All
Mhm.
right. And so was the freedom model the catalyst, the sole catalyst, or was it other things that was happening at that time?
Um, no, it wasn't actually. I think some of it actually was this is interesting because I just listened to your most recent episode about coaching and therapy.
Yeah.
Mm,
And part of my training, my therapist
that's right.
training, um, because I started going into more specific modalities, like have you guys heard of EMDR?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And so I started studying that and trauma, and I think that process helped me see that the way that I was being in AA didn't align with who I was and what I actually believed about helping people.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting with a sponsee and she was reading her fourth step to me. It's even weird to like use those terms.
I
Oh,
know.
it
I know.
so
I
is.
know.
Uh,
It's okay.
yeah, and I just was sitting. I think I had been a therapist, an EMDR therapist, for like 2 years at that point, and I was like, "This is just bad shit that's happened to her. This is her trauma. This is her life story of everything, all the people that have hurt her." And I started crying sitting there with her saying, "I can't do the AA thing today. Like, I'm not going to tell you, I'm getting chills.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you any of this was your fault or that you had a part in any of this. I'm just going to sit here and listen.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't do it. I just can't." And then like the next conversation we had was me being like, I can't do this with you. Like, if you want a sponsor who's going to do that with you, you're going to have to find someone else. Like, that was a cracking open moment.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
It's just like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm not going to do. I feel like I saw in that moment that I had been, not only had I been harmed, but I had harmed others.
Oh yeah, that was a tough moment for us too.
Yeah, I hated that part. When we were building the freedom model in the early years, I mean, there was 12 years that we went to meetings every day. We built our own AA structure. We did it was just so crazy. And I look back at all the people. I did the best I could.
Yeah.
I think that
that's what you have to come to terms with.
I think there's a whole body, and I think Michelle would agree. I think there's a whole body of people in AA that are really good people trying to figure out their life, but also when they're told they got to help others, they want to.
Sure.
Not maybe just stay
Genuine.
sober. Yeah,
Mhm.
that they are genuinely empathetic and good people, but the method is so fucking twisted.
Mhm.
With find your part in it. And I remember doing that with people. And
Mhm.
I can remember some people being really hurt by that.
Oh yeah.
And
I was hurt
and
by that.
yeah. And
Mhm.
I would even ignore in my own life. It took me till I was in my 40s to start to see clearly the shit that I went through as a kid, how twisted it was.
Mhm.
It took me all those years to unravel and kind of go, oh, I really was victimized. And my wife, I'll never forget it. My wife, and Michelle knows my wife very well. They're best friends. And I
Mhm.
said,
Mhm.
looked at me and goes, "You're just figuring that out." She goes, "You lived a completely insane life." She's like,
Mm.
"I thought you knew
Yes.
that. We've talked about it." I said, "I don't think it was ever clear to me until now." So I think I had to get really far from AA because I felt so guilty about who I was as a kid. I lived with just that I was a bad kid, you know, and
Mm.
I just assumed I was. But anyway,
Mhm.
that's more
You,
about me. But so as you got away from AA, so now it's cracked open. you're like, I'm not doing this, then what happens? How do you walk out? How does that process take place?
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. You just made me remember. Yeah, because it's a process. So like I think I gave a lead in between the time that I had that moment with the sponsee and like being completely done with meetings because I had like already committed to it. So, you know, it was like dabbling in meetings still, but paying a really close attention to how I was feeling, not liking what was going on, but just like almost like muscle memory, like my body would just take me there,
Oh yeah.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
And I don't think it was very much longer after that, like maybe 2 weeks after that moment with my sponsee that I found you guys.
Wow.
There was like a few things that, you know, even got me to the place where I could even consider that AA wasn't what I thought it was before I was even open to learning. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, until I found you guys.
So then you find us, you do the search, is AA a cult? You find us, you
Mhm.
start listening, I assume, to the podcast, which is a very common thing. Yes. Is that
Yes, yes.
okay?
Mhm.
And so you're listening, and are you still going to meetings for long after that, or did it end? Where do you get to the point where you have the confidence in yourself to say, I'm the master of my destiny. I don't really need groupthink anymore. Where does that start to take place?
Mm, mm.
The reason I'm asking these questions is I wanna catch the followers out there who may be going through this.
I
We're
know.
in this right now.
Yeah. That are in the midst of it going, "Oh my god, I'm in that part that they're talking about right now, or I'm in that part," So at what part did you get comfortable with the idea of, "I'm never going back to a meeting"? How
Mhm.
long did that take?
I think that took, I think it was summer. When did I read? Do you remember what month it was, Michelle?
It was definitely warm out. It was warm
Yeah,
out
summer.
because I was in the first conversation we had, I had actually brought somebody to an appointment, and so from the retreat, so I was sitting in the car, like, talking to you with the windows open. It was a beautiful day here. So,
Okay, yeah, so it had to be summer.
yeah.
Yeah, it was warm out. Okay, so I think I want to say like June, July.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I didn't like I sprinkled meetings in and gave that lead between July and November. And November is when I stopped going to meetings entirely. And I think that happened because I kept going, actually, because I started to notice like everything I was feeling was like, ugh, like I can't be here. I can't do this. This is all bullshit. And I'm not, but I had also designed my entire life around it.
I know.
So I think it just took me, yeah, but I do think it was continuing to go and noticing and then realizing no part of me wanted to be there anymore.
Okay, so just so I have the timetable correct, so
Yeah.
you have this crack open moment, and then you find us, and then it takes a number of months, maybe a half a year-ish,
6 months. Yeah. 5, 6 months.
where you're dabbling in meetings going, I'm trying to you're trying to figure out what the hell is real and what isn't,
Yeah.
and I call it getting your sea legs, just where you're walking again and feeling like a normal person, right? And
Mhm, mhm.
because what happens is when you're in a cult, and this is more for the people that are listening or watching, eventually you don't believe yourself, and you already are so beat up for a number of reasons. Everybody out there has their own reasons, but you're so beat up that you just don't know if you can trust yourself because maybe you never have.
Right.
I never knew that I was capable of being okay. I just did, like, that wasn't even in my mind. I was just like, I'm a broken dude. And
Mhm.
so it's really it's something very extraordinary when the day happens that you look out and you go, I'm never doing this again. No matter what, I'm just gonna, I guess you just
I'm gonna figure this out.
yeah, I guess,
Like,
yeah.
found my own.
Yeah, I guess you just, so
And trusting yourself. I think I just want to speak to that before you go on, because
No, go.
that I still am wrestling with that. Even like it's like I go in and out of pockets of, wait, no, I am okay, and like I'm making these decisions for myself, and I'm trusting myself. And then there are other times still where I sit with, were they were they right? Like, is this the reason I'm having this problem? Is this the reason I mean, that badness that you're talking about, Mark, like I'm a bad
Yeah.
person or bad kid. And you're saying that goes back to childhood. I think it does for me too. But then my experience in AA, I think just like
Amplified it.
beat down.
Yep.
I mean, there's so many waves of that still come up, like
Oh,
that
yeah.
shame and like wondering if I really am a good person or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it took we were out of AA years and years and years. And I think it took me only it was only about maybe 10 years ago when I realized that life has inherent problems, and that my problems aren't because I once had a drinking problem, and my problems aren't because I was this character defect laden person as a child. That it was probably 10 years ago, wouldn't you say?
I want to talk a little bit about that, and then I'll ask some more questions, because
Yeah.
what happens is, and you, Michelle, you've talked about this really articulately. AA has a way, and Leslie, I'm sure you dealt with it, where they connect. We have the chapter learned
Yeah, learned
connections, right?
connections.
Where they connect everything to your alcoholism, your ism.
Yeah.
I fucking hated that. The ism, not a wasm, and so they connect everything that is negative in your life. Now, I want to talk about that for a second. Life, I always say, is a shitstorm. It's hard to be a human being.
Mhm.
It's just inherently difficult because we're very aware creatures, and we do have free will, and we're aware of the incongruency of life, unlike a dog or a cat or an animal. We
Mhm.
understand things, and we have self-consciousness, which is a tough thing.
Mhm.
So you have this thing called life that AA then puts into a box in a certain narrative, that if you're not perfectly spiritual, if you're not rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence, as Bill Wilson would say, what a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Of all
So,
people.
yeah, of all people, crying for whiskey on his deathbed, right?
Right.
Just a joke, just a complete fucking tool.
Mhm.
So you get into this. If you already feel bad about yourself, if you're already dealing with life and it's kicking your ass,
Yes.
and then you enter AA, it's just so convoluted. At that point, you're like, oh, it's my alcoholism. It's it's this disease, and it's a thinking disease. And then
Oh
where
God,
do you go?
about that thinking disease. There's so many of those terms that I forget about, and then when like I hear them, and I'm like, oh my God, like yeah, the thinking disease, which teaches you to not trust your own thinking.
That's
So
right.
like you're set up for failure. I mean, you know this, I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm just like, I feel like there's just this deepening of understanding that continues just about how fucked up it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like you guys talking about how it's all bullshit, and it's like I just come to that conclusion over and over and over again, but it's like I forget it too. I don't know if
Yeah.
I know. I know. It is very much like leaving an abusive relationship.
That's exactly what it is.
You know,
That's exactly what it is.
but it's abusive system itself that is designed to keep you in it, in this like hell stew.
Here's what's so crazy too, and this is what makes it so freaking confusing. And Leslie, I'm sure you experience this too. There are good people there.
Yes.
So and there's this weird thread of love and
Mm.
and kindness that is there. It may be in small little pockets, but my God, when you're desperate, you tend to overlook a whole bunch of shit that's hurting you because you already feel like a
Right.
bag of crap, right?
Mhm.
So where in the spectrum of would you say you're 100% out at this point, or would you say there's vestiges that still haunt you at this point?
Mhm. There's definitely vestiges still. Yeah. I think that's what's led me to continue to reach out to you, Michelle.
Mhm.
When I notice I'm still kind of thinking this, or I kind of almost, it's like I need your content on a regular basis
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
keep
Well,
me. And so like if I think I got away from it for a little, or like stopped listening to the podcast for a while, and then like I started to forget and reach back out to you to like, it's like I just need to remember. That's how it feels. It's like,
well, do you know why that is? And
why?
it's because our entire culture, the entire culture of the Western world is I don't know how to say it. Like people have been brainwashed in our culture to such an extent. When we do our master class, we talk about this. We're like, I mean, you can talk to somebody on the street who's never had an addiction problem, who has, whether in their family or with themselves, has no contact with anybody that's ever been to AA. And if you say to them, I think I might have a drinking problem, they'll be like, oh, you should start going to AA.
Mhm.
Like you probably have a disease, because now it's taught to kindergartners, and so everything you watch on television, everything you see on social media, it's that's why I say to people, that's why we keep doing the podcast. That's
Yeah.
why we keep making new content, because if you kind of left out in the world, you almost feel like a lone wolf. Like, am I crazy for thinking that this stuff is not right? You
Does
know?
So many times, there was one time I remember now, it's funny. I was walking in the summer and I was listening to a podcast, and it wasn't yours, it was someone else's, and they were talking about AA in this way that you're talking, like the brainwashed way. And
Yeah.
I texted you and I was like, this is maddening. Like I get so angry about this. I'm
Yeah.
wondering like maybe that's where I'm at, Mark, in the
She's
process.
she's at the mad stage. Yeah.
No, I get so frustrated and angry about how much it's infiltrated every part of our society.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then.
Hmm.
So, I do this for a living. So I've leveraged leaving into helping others, right? So I've but most people don't do that. They leave a cult and they leave it behind, and they move on with their lives, which is wonderful, right?
Mhm.
So before I ask the question, I just want to say to everybody that's out there, life is hard and it's okay. And that's okay. And so we all have issues. We all have these things that we go through, but you don't have to make it worse.
No.
You don't have to enter something that takes away your thinking apparatus and says you can't think for yourself.
Mhm.
So now here's my question. So if on a scale of 1 to 100 or 1 to 10, how comfortable are you now thinking for yourself? I know that's kind of a broad question, but where do you have the confidence? Do you feel like you're on your way to being in that place where you're like, you know what, I can say what I feel and I'm okay?
Mhm. Yeah, I almost want to. Did you ask for a scale of 1 to 10?
He
Yeah,
did.
like where
Okay,
are you?
yeah, I was gonna say I feel like I could give a number. 10 is
The
completely
best. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Free and just,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think I'm an 7, 8.
that's a good
I think
place.
that's a good place.
That's
Yeah,
a
I
good
think that's
place.
probably right based on our talks.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I was like, I kind of want to know what you think based on what
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think that's. I was gonna say maybe 8. I was gonna say that.
yeah, because I still, I can, it's this weird like consciousness difference almost. It's like I kind of shift in and out of like
Yeah.
the cult self, I guess. That's
Yes.
what I've learned. Have you guys studied Steve
Yep.
Hassan?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
His work has helped me so much too. But yeah, like I still go to the cult self occasionally, and I do doubt myself occasionally, but I think I have more and more and longer periods of like just being me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's really good.
it is.
That's really good.
Yeah, every time you and I have talked, I've seen that. I've seen more, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, you're more confident, you're more, gosh,
You
like,
can
it's
sense it.
amazing. It's amazing the changes you see, because you and I have talked, like long stretches of time go by. And then
Before,
when
yeah.
yeah, it's good.
That's so good to hear, like, to get that feedback too, that you can
Yeah.
see it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, here's the deal. Anybody that can sit here, get on a screen and talk to the public about this is well on their way out.
For sure.
You know, you can't do this. You can't if you're in the cult, because you're you're shot at that point. You know, it's just
Oh,
you're so
yeah.
beat up.
Right.
So what are you looking forward to? So that's where we should end this. Let's talk about the fun stuff of
Yeah,
life.
what's Leslie gonna do now?
Yeah. What do you, when you look out at the landscape of your life, what are some of the things that you don't have to be too personal about it, but what are you looking at doing?
Yeah, it's interesting how much more time I have. I just noticed that, but it's funny because I thought that when I stopped drinking, it was like, oh, now I have all this time. And then when I got out of AA, I was like, no, I have all this time because I'm not going to meetings and I'm not spending all that energy reading literature and trying to be of service to other people. And so it's been a struggle to kind of know that, Mark, to be
Yeah.
like, oh, where am I going? And like, what do I want to do? What do I want? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've wrestled a lot with like, am I really a therapist? Am I a therapist actually? Is that who I am? Or did I just think that because of,
Oh, right.
and so I've just been like wrestling with that, and I've dabbled in other methods, more holistic and spiritual methods of healing. And so I kind of want to take, I'm going to continue to do therapy, but I'm going to integrate other things that are exciting to me. I started doing Reiki. I don't know if you guys are.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So practicing that, and then creating, I want to create basically like a community or like a team of people who are just helpers and healers, not necessarily just therapists. Like we'll do talk therapy, but we're going to do a whole bunch of other stuff too that's going to help you.
That's cool.
So let me tie this all together then. This is pretty cool. So the role the freedom model plays in this kind of a journey, and I'm saying this for the people watching, is to deprogram and know that you are capable as a human being to live the life you want to live. Not that what life tells you should live, not what a cult tells you, or a sponsor, or a therapist, a bad therapist. A good therapist will never tell you how to live your life.
Agreed.
And the whole point of this curriculum for people, I'm holding up the book for those that are listening, is so that you can deprogram from that. And Leslie, what you're talking about is being right at that precipice of where you're letting go of the cult completely. You're right there. You're right there. And there's a weird spot that you're at. And we've all been there that have finally left. And when you finally break off, what you're breaking off of is the social aspect and the tiny little shred of love that you got from that organization. It's like leaving, as Michelle says, a bad marriage. There's even with men and women who are beaten and abused in these bad marriages, they find it hard to leave because there's this little piece. There's this love, right? Even though they have a black eye and their kids are being abused and all these bad things are happening, they hang on. Their positive drive will hang on to that one little piece. So always, and I remember the place I was when I finally was like, I'm never going back. And it was like I almost felt like this chain came off my neck. And I said, I'm just going to have the courage to try new things. And it's got to be better. Now, I didn't know if it was going to be better because I had never done that. I've been in systems and cults since I was 7 years old. Here I was 31. I had never known not being involved in a modality, quote unquote. And for the first time, I was going to be a human being. I had never been a human being. And so you're about to become a human being, an autonomous, free thinking, human being and just trying shit. Swing the bat and just try. And when you start doing that, which you're right there.
That's so awesome.
It's going to be pretty cool.
Wow. Thank you. That's inspiring and comforting to hear. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah. Of course.
How did you get all the way out then? Like, is it like just go and try and do the things and then eventually it'll be completely gone behind me?
Yes.
Yes. And know that we did it still in a help industry, right? Because we were running retreats. Like we started running the retreats during a time when we were still integrated in it. And so we walked out of it while still helping people kind of within that system.
But that made it very hard.
It made it so hard.
That made it really hard and prolonged the tether that normally I don't think somebody like yourself would experience. You know, you're already questioning therapy, right? But being in the help industry, it was really hard.
Yeah. He and I actually had a little over us as we were leaving. And so I think I went 2 years and he and I was out.
Didn't talk. Yeah.
I didn't. And so I kind of was out on my own for a short period of time. While at the time that we were really getting out, but because it was that stressful.
Yeah, it was stressful, but I think the much more efficient way is to just leave it. And so to answer your question, I definitely wouldn't do what we did, and that's stay in the industry. If you're going to be a therapist, that does make it sticky because there's a lot of modalities that are like AA and it makes it so that you're going to constantly be wondering, is this one legit? Is this not legit?
I know it's hard.
So I always tell people the freedom model is your ticket out, and then it's end. You don't stay with the freedom model, right? That's just to get out. And yes, the answer always to all trauma, people always ask me, or trauma or being in a cult or just a bad experience in life, is moving in a new direction and doing it courageously. Courage means moving forward, no matter if you're scared or not.
Even if you are scared.
Yeah. Yeah. And so,
which you've already done. I mean, you've extricated yourself so much. You were very much intertwined.
I was.
Yeah. And
you talking about that, like falling out you had, I've recently experienced, like cutting ties with relationships that whom I created or whom I met while I was in it. And they were also in it. They weren't also in it.
Right.
Knew me as that person.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a huge thing too. It's
like trickles off almost. It feels like I'm still kind of shedding, and it's almost like I'm almost done. Like I've almost completely shed everything I need to shed.
The last thing I'll say is that I think that when I started getting involved in activities that had absolutely nothing to do, where people wouldn't even know what the fuck I was talking about with AA, I felt like a fish out of water because I had been in these systems my whole life. And that was huge. That progressed me fast. Then I was dealing on social levels that had nothing to do with the system. It was just normal people.
I know it's such a weird thing to be, because you feel like such an outcast, like an outsider when you're doing that.
You do. Yeah, I know. It's like, oh my God, there's a whole world out there.
Yes.
All these normal people who don't think like this. I mean, it's just the strangest. I became a volunteer firefighter, and it was just like, it was like people spoke a different language.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really.
Yep. But yes. So that's what you're going to do. You're just going to swing the bat and move forward courageously.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do. And thank you so much for your work. It's helped me tremendously.
Well, it's our pleasure. And I can't believe it. The time went by so fast.
Yeah.
So fast. You've been a wonderful guest. Wonderful.
Thank you. Invite me on anytime. I'll come back.
Yeah, right. For sure.
Well, we'll be talking, I'm sure.
And continuing to grow with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie.
That's awesome. Thank you.
And where can people find you?
Yes.
Oh yeah. crackedopentherapy.com. Also on Instagram. You can email me at leslie@crackedopentherapy.com.
Awesome.
Cool.
And I think maybe I sent it to an old email address that you got. That's maybe why you didn't get my email.
Oh, yep. Got it.
Well, now
All
we got
right.
it.
Bye.
Bye, Leslie.
Thank
Stay
you.
on.
So yeah, you could stay on. I'm just going to.
Stop recording.
Are you struggling with a drug or alcohol problem, but you don't want to go to rehab or group meetings? Well, that's why we created the non-12-step Freedom Model Coaching Program in 2011. Through video conferencing on Zoom or Skype, you can work privately with a certified Freedom Model coach from your home or office on your schedule. And here's the best part. With the Freedom Model, you'll never be labeled an addict or an alcoholic, and we won't tell you to go to 12-step meetings or hamper your life with endless recovery rituals. Instead, you can learn exactly why addiction isn't a disease and how you can solve the problem for good and move on with your life. Do you want to be completely free from your addiction? Do you want to never have to attend meetings, rehabs, or addiction counseling ever again? And do you want to solve your problem from the comfort of home? Then call us at 888-424-2626 to talk with a Freedom Model coach today and experience the Freedom Model difference.